and welcome to today's webinar, Coding with AI, Why the Fundamentals Still Matter. My name's Etty. I'm a part of the marketing team here at StayAhead. We'll just give it another minute or so for a few people to join, because I know we've still got people filtering in. And then I'll be handing over to Stuart here, who is our lead web development and programming trainer. So before I do that, we've just got a couple of housekeeping bits that I'd just like to run through, just to make sure that today's session runs as seamlessly as it possibly can. So firstly, you'll notice that you're all on mute. I don't believe you have the option to unmute yourself, but if you do, please don't use it. It just means that everything is a lot clearer. We can all hear Stuart nice and clearly if everyone else is quiet. So if you do have any questions though, as you're going through, if you just pop them up in the question box, which I think should be in the top right hand corner of your screen. If they're technical, you can't see us, you can't hear us, I'll be dealing with those in the background. Otherwise, we will be doing a little Q&A session at the end. So we'll run through any questions about the content at that point. The webinar is being recorded. You'll receive a follow-up email from us on Monday with the links to those recordings, so you can watch them back and sort of forward them on to any colleagues if you think they might find them interesting as well. And finally, we'd like to say, give us a follow on LinkedIn. We're very active over on there and we share lots of information about new courses that are coming up, and any other sort of webinars and events like this one. So you'll be the first to hear about those kind of things. Today's session is going to last about 30 minutes. And then, as I said, we will have time for a Q&A at the end. So I will now hand you over to Stuart's very capable hands.
Thanks, Eddie. Can I just ask of you, actually, I can only see myself in the list of people, but I assume that's just the way the meeting's set up. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we do have a few other people. We have plenty of other people on.
Okay. Okay.
I can see them. Well, I can't see their faces, but I can see their names. So
fine.
Yes,
Okay,
we do have plenty of other people with us, Stuart. Don't worry, you're not talking to an empty space.
I'm not talking to myself. Okay, excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name's Stuart. I'm responsible for delivering a range of coding courses at StayAhead, covering sort of our three primary languages: Python, Java, and JavaScript. But I do a bunch of other stuff as well. And the session today, as Eddie mentioned, is dealing with coding with AI. So I'm just going to dive in and get straight to it. So I'm a little an amateur, should we say, a very, very amateur historian, and I was thinking to myself about how I could squeeze in a bit of history to the presentation here, and it got me thinking about the comparison one might draw between AI and Napoleon. One might say about Napoleon that he was both great and terrible at the same time, and I think there is some similarity there between AI. It is a great tool, but it can it can do things that you wouldn't necessarily classify as terrible, but it's not always the output that you get from AI tools is not always great. And my proposition here today is that it requires people who have some fundamental knowledge and a questioning nature, I guess, to use AI successfully to generate code. So we'll look at AI's solution to a very simple Java problem, and we'll look at the questions that an experienced developer might ask of the code that the AI produces, and then we'll also analyze AI's responses. Now, the content is technical, but you don't need to be a developer to grasp the overarching concepts here. So don't panic when I demonstrate a little code. I'm sure that you'll be able to pick up the gist of what I'm talking about as we go along. So so let's get into it then. First of all, as I mentioned, this particular example deals in Java code, and I was using did this at the beginning of the year. So at that time, GPT-4 was sort of a model, AI model of note. It's been superseded since then, but the I think what I present here still applies, and I'm pretty confident that if I were to issue the same prompt to the same model today, I would get very similar similar responses. So the prompt was to build an object-oriented program to calculate the diameter, circumference, and area of a circle given its radius. Now, anyone who's written any amount of Java code before would know that this is a pretty simple problem. It's the type of thing that we would expect a delegate attending our level 1 Java course to be able to do by the end of the course. So that's the sort of level that we're dealing with. So the AI the AI generated some code for me, as you'd expect. It generated a class named circle with a field called radius. It generated a constructor with some validation logic inside that throws illegal argument exception, which is a little odd, perhaps, depending on your perspective. The class included methods get diameter, get circumference, and get area. Perfectly legitimate. That is what we would expect. And it generated a main class with some code for user input and output. So we have something that we can use to operate the circle class. So on the surface, it's good. The code that is generated is good. And if we jump over to the editor, we can see the code here. And this code is untouched. I haven't modified it at all from what was generated. So you can see the circle class. You can see the constructor here that throws the illegal argument exception. You can see the 3 methods: get diameter, get circumference, get area. And then we have a main class with some code inside that enables the user to interact with the circle object. And the code works. It does what we'd expect. So when if I give it a run here, it will prompt me to enter a radius. When I do that and hit enter, it then outputs the derived values: the diameter, the circumference, and the area. So on the surface, all is well. The code looks good at a superficial level. It works. It generates the right output. And for a novice developer using AI, they're likely to be satisfied because the code does what it is supposed to do. However, my contention is that whenever we use AI to generate code, we ought to interrogate it pretty carefully, pretty closely. And even something as simple as this requires some critical analysis, in my view. Of course, there'll be developers who will disagree with me here. They'll say that it's sufficiently simple to not worry too much about the detail, but in my view, the detail is all important. So the first question that an experienced developer might ask about this generated code is, why did you make the circle class final? So for those of you who are the developers among you, or those with a bit of programming experience, may have noticed that the circle class here is prefixed with the final keyword, and so too is the field radius. It's also marked as being final. And most beginner Java developers, if I were to ask them what is the meaning of the final keyword, they'll probably say something about constants. However, the final keyword means different things in different contexts. It means something different when applied to a class than it does when it's applied to a field or a method. So when I asked this question of GPT-4, it responded, and I'm paraphrasing here, it responded by saying it's a design choice. And straight away, we realize that the AI is making decisions for us that we haven't necessarily explicitly required or asked of the AI. And that's not necessarily a problem, but it's worth noting. More worryingly, though, the AI then tells me that it makes instances of the class immutable and thread safe. Neither of these things are true. Making a class final in Java does not make instances of that class immutable at all, nor does it make instances of the class thread safe. Now, we could cut the AI some slack here by saying that, well, making the class final might be one of the steps that you would take in order to ensure that the instances are immutable or thread safe, but it's not sufficient on its own. But for a developer who's a beginner, or perhaps even at the intermediate level, they may not know that. They may not know enough to be able to challenge that assertion. So it's not just that the information that the AI is providing here is arguably wrong, or, if we're being generous, incomplete. It's that the developer at the end of this is likely to get a false impression. Okay, and that, I think, is perhaps the more worrying part of this. The AI also suggests that it encourages that, it says that making the class final encourages composition over inheritance, implying that composition is somehow better than inheritance. And this is also not the case. Composition and inheritance both have their place in Java. Both are very important. But it is not true at all to say that composition is better than inheritance. This is just flat out wrong. And so again, it's not that there's not some truth to what the AI is saying. It's more a case that it may drive a view with the developer that leads him or her to make bad decisions down the line. So these things are dubious at best. Finally, the AI says that it's not required. Well, if it's not required, the obvious follow-up is, well, why did you do it if it's not necessary? The second question that an experienced developer might ask of this code is, and this is a little bit academic, but why did you check the constructor argument using the double is NaN method? Now, NaN stands for not a number, for those of you who are unaware. And if we take a look at the code, we can see this here. Inside the constructor, we have this if statement that reads, if the radius is not a number, or if the radius is less than 0, then we're throwing the exception. Okay. So on the surface, it may seem like a perfectly reasonable thing to do, to check that the radius is a valid number and that it's equal to or greater than 0. Now, the AI responded to my question by saying that double values can be not a number. That is true. But it also claims that NaN values do not compare reliably. Well, I disagree. I think that NaN values in Java do compare reliably. If you compare a double value that is NaN with any other double value, it will return false. And I think that's reliable. So the AI is giving a view here, which I would challenge. Now, I know what the AI is getting at. It's suggesting that if we allow NaN values to pass, that down the line, for example, if we attempt to calculate the circumference, we may get an NaN result, and that may be bad, garbage in, garbage out. But equally, I could argue that if someone creates a circle object with an NaN radius, it makes perfect sense that when I ask for the circumference that I would get NaN back again. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think that's perfectly legitimate. Now, you could argue it's a question of business rules, but who should be dictating the business rules, me or the AI? Now, you could argue that I didn't provide detailed enough specifications when I gave the prompt, and that's fair. That's fair. But nonetheless, unless we interrogate the code and critique it, it's arguably very difficult to provide a prompt that is so comprehensive and explicit as to cover all of these bases. Okay, and one could further argue that if we are going to write prompts like that, it may be just as quick to write the code instead of having the AI do it in the first place. More importantly, crucially, in fact, in this particular case, in response to this question, the AI changed its own code. I didn't ask it to change the code, it just did it when I asked the question, which suggests, in my view, that the original solution that the AI gave me was suboptimal. Okay. Excuse me. So, the fact that the AI will change its code in response to questioning, I think, tells you an awful lot about how we should approach using AI tools to help us write code. We need to be able to be in a position to critically analyze it. Question number 3, why did you throw illegal argument exception from the constructor? So again, a similar thing here. If the given radius is not a number or it's less than 0, we're throwing an illegal argument exception. Now, those of you with some Java knowledge will know that an illegal argument exception is a type of error that is unchecked. So it doesn't require us to write code to handle it. And if this error occurs at runtime, the application will crash, the program will crash. Okay. So the reason for my asking the question is twofold. First of all, it's a little unconventional to include business logic in a constructor. And secondly, it's questionable to be throwing errors or exceptions that do not require handling. We're effectively throwing an error that won't require the developer to do anything about it and will ultimately lead to the program crashing, depending on the circumstances. So the AI's response, again, I'm paraphrasing, was to say that the constructor must ensure a non-negative finite radius. Says who? Did I include any such business rules in the initial prompt? No, I did not. Now, it's not unreasonable that the AI should assume that the radius of the circle should be non-negative. Most circles don't have a negative radius, but is it completely beyond the realms of possibility in science? No, it's not. And is it entirely unreasonable that we would have an infinite radius? Well, maybe not. Again, the issue here is that the AI is making decisions about the business logic without my specifying. It didn't ask me, it just did it. Okay. Now, again, you could argue, you could say, well, Stuart, you're being unreasonable, because what you ought to have done is ask the AI to plan the code for you first, rather than just asking it to do it. And that's a fair criticism. But are all developers who are using AI to generate code going through a planning phase first? I'm not sure they are. Not in my experience, they're not. Secondly, the AI says that throwing a legal argument exception preserves immutability. No, it doesn't. That's just flat out wrong. It says that callers aren't forced to catch the exception, and that callers will be notified of incorrect usage via the stack trace. Now, this is a very nice academic way of saying that if the user passes in an invalid radius, the program will crash. Okay. So it's using technical language to make it sound good, but the reality is not so good. So again, the responses that the AI are giving here are not unreasonable. They're not ridiculous, but for somebody who is not sufficiently knowledgeable and doesn't know enough to be able to challenge the assertions that are being made here, it's a problem, in my view, and will lead to bigger problems when the code is integrated into a larger, more sophisticated system. Question number 4 is arguably very petty. The question is, why did you not use the keyword var for local variables? So let me give you a little example here. If we look at the main class that the AI generated, in fact, I've subsequently made a change here, for example, to scanner. I changed scanner to var. But if we look here, for example, the AI is not making use of the var keyword, nor is it doing it here. It's not doing it here either. Now, the var keyword has been a thing in Java since version 10, which is, version 10 is very old, okay? Version 10 was released way back in, it's at least 10 years ago, okay? And I would argue that we ought to be using var, particularly given that we're now on version 25 of Java, okay? So var was introduced in version 10, we're now on version 25. That's how long ago it was introduced. But the AI is not using it, and I'm asking why. The AI says in response that it's because of compatibility, clarity, and style. Okay, well, let's deal with each one of those in turn. Compatibility. If I'm writing Java code today in 2026 to be compatible with Java 10, I've got big problems. If I'm still running Java 10 in a serious production grade system, then we got big problems. For clarity, well, this is subjective. I would argue that when used correctly and in the right place, var actually makes the code, improves the clarity of the code. It doesn't degrade it. So that is subjective. And style Well, again, I have not provided the AI with any style guidelines at all. So what style is it talking about? Clearly, it has its own interpretation of what that ought to mean. Now, of course, we can provide AI tools with instructions and specify sort of style that we want to use, and arguably I ought to be doing that. Okay. Not to poo-poo the AI too much here, it says because var needs an initializer and can hide surprising types. That is entirely true and legitimate. It also says because var can't be used for uninitialized locals or null. That is also true. But if I'm using var correctly, as I ought to be, as the AI ought to be, then those things shouldn't be a problem. If the AI understands that var can't be used for uninitialized locals or null, fine, don't use it for uninitialized locals or null. But I'm not trying to use it for that here. You know, there's no uninitialized local here. There's no null. So there's no reason why var could not be used. Question number 5 is, why did you wrap the main method lines 19 to 25 in a try block? So over here, we can see a big try block here with an associated catch block. Okay. So the code is attempting to create a circle given the radius entered by the user, and it's then calling the various methods and outputting the derived values, the diameter and circumference and so on. All pretty simple stuff. The reason I'm asking the question, though, is that there are 6 lines of code in this try block, but only one of them that will potentially raise an error. So why are we putting 6 lines of code in a try block where only one of them may result in an error? I would argue that this is bad practice. So what does the AI have to say for itself? Well, it says, because the constructor throws illegal argument exception for invalid radii. Sure, but that's the circle constructor. That's only one line of code. Why are the other 5 lines of code also in the try block? It says because it prevents the program crashing. Well, yeah, it does, but it's interesting that the AI is now concerned about the program crashing. But when it created the circle class, it was happy to throw an illegal argument exception that doesn't have to be handled. It wasn't very concerned about the program crashing at this point, but now it is. And it says because it ensures results are output only if the circle is created successfully. Well, again, this is for somebody who is a beginner or even a sort of a mid-level developer. They may accept that answer and just carry on. But it is not the case that we have to have all 6 lines of code in the try block to make sure that results are only output if the circle is created successfully. There are many other ways of dealing with that without having large try catch blocks. And the problem is not so much that it's a big deal in this particular case. It is the lesson that the developer may learn from the code that the AI produces that it's going to set him or her on the path to writing poor quality code down the line. Try blocks should be as small as possible so that it's very obvious what line of code is responsible for the error. And the AI is effectively giving the developer the impression that it's okay for try blocks to be large, where really that's not something that we want good quality experienced developers to do. Last question, number 6. Why did you create a decimal format object with the pattern hash dot hash 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 hash? Okay, so we see this here in the main class the AI is generating a decimal format object to format the results. So we don't want a circumference value with, you know, with 20 digits after the decimal point. Okay. But why this particular format? Why 6 digits after the decimal point and not 8 or 10? Okay. Again, the AI is making decisions about the code on my behalf. And again, you could argue that it's unfair of me to be critical because I didn't provide sufficient specs, and that's okay. That's okay. But perhaps one of the takeaways is that, you know, we've got to write long and very detailed prompts. But if we know enough to write very long and detailed prompts, then you might argue that just get on and write the code yourself. The AI responds by saying, because it limits the fractional precision to 6 digits and rounds accordingly. Well, 6 digits says who? And rounds accordingly, well, rounds how? Down, up, half down, half up? Did we specify? Did it ask? No, it just did it. And it says so that trailing zeros are omitted. It fails to mention that leading zeros are also omitted. So that if we have a very small radius, we may end up with values with no zero before the decimal point, which is going to look very odd indeed. We're only going to pick up on that if we're doing really thorough testing. Okay. Now, again, you could argue here that I'm being very pedantic, but I would suggest that that's a developer's job. So, in summary, and to bring it back to a historical reference, Admiral Nelson checked Napoleon's imperial expansion, at least in the seas. And in the same way, AI is a great tool. Napoleon did a lot of great things. You know, he ended feudalism. He brought sort of archaeology to North Africa. But he did a lot of terrible things too. Many tens of thousands of people died on account of his wars of conquest. AI is a great tool, and it can do an awful lot for us. It will attempt to do pretty much anything we ask. But my contention is that it requires questioning and knowledgeable users. We need people prompting AI who know what they're doing to be able to critically analyze the code is produced and ask the right questions, and not merely accept what the AI produces and assume that it's good and correct. One could argue that we should see AI as kind of an assistant, as a junior dev that we're delegating to. But if we view the relationship in that way, then it should be obvious that there's a lot of curating that needs to happen. Okay. So I think that's it. We've run just about half an hour. So, but I'm very happy to take questions, and I think Etty will probably direct that.
Yep. So we've not had any questions through as of yet. So if you do have anything that you wanted to ask Stuart about the content that we've run through today, please do just pop it up in that question box. As you can see on the screen, we do in fact have a full coding with AI training course now. This was released fairly recently. It's a one-day skills-based course, which essentially covers what we did today, but in a lot more detail. I believe I'm correct in saying, Stuart.
Yeah.
So it will help you to understand sort of the opportunities that come from using AI, but also the limitations of using these tools, and help you develop stronger judgmental skills, so you can really question the AI tools, as Stuart has done today. So if you do have an interest in this course, if you think that's something that you might find useful, you can find more information about it over on our website, or you can also get in touch with the team. The contact details are also on the website, and they will be happy to kind of offer a bit of guidance, and answer any questions you might have about training for yourself or for other members of your team. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've still not had any questions, so I'm assuming, Stuart, you have covered everything people wanted to know, which is great. So, but yes, if you do have any questions that you think of after the session, I can appreciate that sometimes there's a lot of information to take in, so it might take a little while to settle. Oh, I have one question. We do have a question. So Tom has asked, do you have any thoughts on the claim that extensive unit testing is sufficient for validating AI-generated code rather than reading the code itself?
Well, my view is going to be subjective. My view is that certainly you want a comprehensive suite of unit tests. There's no question about that. I don't think it's sufficient, though. I think that one still requires, it is still necessary to go through the code in detail and question the decisions made. There are things that unit testing won't pick up. So on the plus side, take the number formatting issue, so the decimal format question. That is something that unit testing ought to pick up. So if we want more digits after the decimal place, if we're doing comprehensive sort of exhaustive unit testing, that sort of thing ought to get picked up by unit testing. On the other hand, though, the issue of the class being final and the claim that making the class final makes instances of the class immutable, that's not going to get picked up by unit testing. I mean, I'd be shocked if somebody had written a unit test that would verify that the class can't be subclassed. So that there are certainly things that unit testing will pick up, but I don't think it covers all the bases. So no, I don't agree that it's sufficient to have comprehensive unit testing. I think detailed analysis of the generated code is necessary in addition to unit testing.
Right, thank you. We've also had a question here from Sean, who says, how can junior developers learn from AI? And alternatively, how can senior developers help juniors to learn?
That's a really good question. I think the thing that occurs to me is we have to try to inculcate a questioning culture. So how can junior devs learn from AI? Well, what I try to encourage juniors do that I teach is to, whenever they're using AI to generate code, if the AI generates code that they don't understand, ask the AI to explain it to them. Don't just accept it. Oh, I don't really get that, but it must be right because the AI generated. No. And I do it too. I mean, look, none of us knows everything, and inevitably, the more we use AI, the more it's going to produce stuff that we've never seen before, that we're not familiar with. But we've got to say, well, okay, I've not seen that before. I don't understand it. I don't know why it's been done that way. So ask. Switch your AI assistant to a questioning agent, the ask agent in GitHub Copilot, for example, and say, what is that? I don't understand that. What does that do? And that's something that I think juniors have to be taught to do that, right? And seniors can help juniors by challenging the juniors in the same way, right? So if the junior generates some code, the senior can look at it and go, well, explain that to me. What is that? And you'll very quickly work out whether the junior understands the code or whether he or she has just had the AI generate it without really knowing what it's doing. So AI is a fantastic tool for learning. And, I'm teaching most of the time, but the thing that I use AI for most is not generating code, it's learning. It's asking the AI to explain things to me. And I would further say that if the AI gives you an explanation that seems a bit dubious, or you don't understand it, keep talking to it. It'll either produce a better explanation or it'll contradict itself, and then that will force you to go off and look at some actual documentation and try to verify what the AI is talking about that way. So it's inculcating a questioning culture and making sure that devs, when they're using AI, if the AI generates code that they don't understand, use the AI to learn it, to help you to understand. It's fantastic for that. So it's a cultural thing. It's building up that questioning sort of nature. That questioning culture is the most important piece in my view.
Great, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I think that's all the questions we've had through today. As I said, if you do have any questions that you think of sort of after the session, you can get in touch with us. So Stuart's happy for you to email him directly. So you'll get his expertise. Or if you have any questions about the Coding with AI course I mentioned, you can get in touch with the rest of the team via the contact details on our website. Hope you've enjoyed today's session. We are actually running another 2 webinars today. It's a busy day for Stuart and I. So at 12 p.m. we're doing our data analysis with Python and Pandas AI. And at 2:30 we have an ethical hacking and secure coding webinar. So there's still time to register for both of those if you haven't already and you are interested in joining us. So you can do that via the forms on the website. Thank you again for joining us this morning. We hope you all took a lot away from the session. And yeah, we hope you have a lovely rest of your day and potentially see a few of you later.